This is a post-conference, or post-observation conference with Brian Tritt from Bettendorf Middle School for Chad Udy's midterm. All right, thanks for coming in today, Brian.
Yeah, no problem, Chad.
Good. So just from yesterday's lesson, was in the room. You greeted students as you walked in, as they walked in the room, speaking Spanish the entire time, which met standard 6B, modeling responsible behavior for the Iowa standards. What do you hope to accomplish when you're greeting students like that?
Yeah, I think it's important, you know, whether it's in Spanish or English or any language, when kids are coming in, that you're sort of engaging them, talking to them, saying hi, and I think it just sort of sets the mood a little bit, rather than having a teacher sitting at a desk and then the bell rings, then you get up and then get in your lesson. I think it's a good opportunity for me to just sort of get a feel for how they are, you know, just like before they come in the room. I think it's just a nice thing to greet a student when they're coming in. And I think it just sort of shows you care about them a little bit as a person and also as a student too in the classroom.
Oh, great. And in your opener, you met Stand 1D, that creating classroom culture of sports learning for students. What do you think the students accomplished during your opener?
Well, I think part of the reason why we do openers is, number one, usually the content that's there in openers, there's sort of a review of what we've done in the past. And so the bell ringing that we did yesterday as an opener was reviewing some terms and some grammar structures that we've been studying the last couple of days in the week, in the previous week. So I think it touched upon a little bit of previous knowledge while also working on some different skills we were working on that day too. And the topic was stem changing verbs, and how it's a little different than normal verbs in Spanish. So they're still getting they're getting a pretty good handle on what's going on, but occasionally they struggle from time to time.
You kind of answered this a little bit, but how do you feel the lesson went? I guess in its entirety from start to finish.
Sure. I think overall it went pretty good. My goal for the lesson was to review not only how to conjugate verbs, but also the meaning, significance behind what the verbs are saying, because the vocabulary is new, and the grammar structures are fairly new too. So my goal for the lesson was just to get some review and get a basic understanding of what the new vocab was meaning. Then from there we can take it and put it into more context and speaking and having conversations and writing about things. So at the end of the day, I thought it was pretty good. Also because today in class, the following day from the lesson from yesterday, kids were expressing, oh, yesterday really helped out. You know, the computer, the Quizlet application really helped out in what we did in class today. So getting that small feedback, I think, gave me reassurance that it was an okay lesson. And even though we weren't doing a lot of direct instruction and interaction among students, I think they got something from the Quizlet.
So that feedback you got today, was that just in conversation?
Yeah, just general conversation. Yeah, kids were coming in, and it was through the opener that we did today, and then also through some activities we did in class too. I think they picked up on some of that.
Great. All right, and then when students corrected and answered questions on the smartboard, that met standards 2D and 3E, the use of instructional strategies and using resources such as technology. What will you do to keep students motivated as you participate in the opener in the future?
I think it gets tough. You know, when initially in the year, kids are pretty motivated to get up and either work on the backboard or on the smartboard. They just like getting out of their seats for that initial opener. You know, as the year drags on, you know, students get a little bit less and less, you know, interested in doing that, which begs the question, you know, how can you change things up a little bit? I think sort of creating an environment that it's okay to make mistakes on the boards. I think one thing that deters students from putting their work on any kind of board for them or for a class is they don't want to make mistakes, and it's like, I don't want to go up there because, you know, I don't want to see people see me having a mistake or have to correct my work. So it goes back to a little bit of setting an environment of establishing it's okay to make mistakes. And I'll say it quite often in class, like, hey, I want to see you guys having a couple of changes that we need to make here and there, and you know, because eventually we're going to learn, other students are going to learn from you. and obviously you're learning yourself too. And a little bit it's the language that you use too. Instead of using mistakes, sometimes I use, what kind of tweaks, do we have here? Or I'll mention, we got a lot of really good work that's up here. I really like what's going on. Can you make any tweaks to it or alterations? Just let it sit for a little bit. And then sometimes students will, like, okay, I got something up here. Sometimes it's themselves too. So I think giving that time from sort of digest what's going on on the board and creating that environment. So it's okay to have a mistake here and there, because at the end of the day, we want to have them improve their language skills.
Yeah, I did notice two students conversing about it and correcting what was up there, and then went back up and changed it. So.
Right. And that's the thing too, because sometimes at the beginning of the year when we put work up there, before we go over it, like what's good about it, what are some things we can make changes of. If a student's not sure of what the right answer is, they'll look on the board and they'll copy it down, and without even realizing if it's right or wrong yet.
Yeah.
So by now they sort of get an idea of what we do.
Then you had posted on the board learning targets when we went to the computer lab, and that connects to the standards 3B and 1B, communicating high expectations, strategies supporting building goals. How do you know that they met those goals?
Usually different checks that we have periodically throughout the lessons. Sometimes it's as simple as like a thumbs up, thumbs down, or thumbs in between check that we'll do. Like for example, yesterday at the end of the lesson, before we left the lab, I just said, okay, thinking back to our learning targets that we had, and I brought them up again, saying that I can accurately conjugate stem changing verbs. Just give me a quick thumbs up, thumbs down, or thumbs in between, how we're doing on this target. And it's a really easy quick check just to see where they're at, and it's not very threatening for them to raise their hand and, hey, I'm doing this, or I don't get this at all. It's sort of into by their chest, so other students don't see how well they're understanding what the concepts are. Also, the test function of Quizlet gave them some feedback, and I was able to get around to most students once they're testing on that, on the stem changing verbs, just to see where they had a B range or A range, and also eventually once we get to some formative assessments, eventually the summative assessment, I can get a handle on sort of where they are. The idea is hopefully I got a pretty good handle on how good they're acquiring their skills before we even take that summative assessment, just in case we need to do back up, reteach, do something else.
Then you mentioned you use Quizlet for practicing grammar and listening skills, which meets that standard 4F of using technology to deliver instruction. How will the results of the program affect your future planning for classroom?
Results. I think, I guess the results of what they learned from that.
Yeah, like I would say the results of like their quiz that they took. And,
Okay.
I know some of the ins and outs of that, but any of those results.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely drive the future lessons to see, can we move forward? Can we put these verbs in more of a context and develop conversations, or develop maybe a project around what we've been working on? Or do we need to, we didn't do very well on some of the activities or the testing function on Quizlet. We need to back up and we need to reteach some things going forward. But just getting that feedback from what I saw yesterday and also what they're doing in class, I think they're getting, they're picking it up pretty well, mainly because they've had verb conjugation for the first and second and third quarter, at least at the beginning of the third quarter. So I think how it will drive my lessons, I think we can move forward and use it more in context in class.
So if students didn't pick up on it, what will you do the next day in class?
Yeah, I think if it was a certain student, I would say, hey, I noticed you didn't do so well. Just something that's you don't understand, and maybe I'd do that towards the end of yesterday's class. And if they needed extra help, I'd try to make time for them. Say, hey, tomorrow we got TA, would you mind coming in? We could go over a couple things. Because it's tough sometimes during class, when you got a lot of things planned for the lesson, it's tough to find time individually to go over stuff with kids that need help. So if it was an individual kind of thing, I try to find time outside of class. But if it was like across the board, like, whoa, we need to step back here a little bit. I think to start the next day, for example today, I would take those example problems or issues and we'd address them right away to start class, either through an opener, a writing opener, maybe a speaking opener, or listening. And then just see if anybody had any questions about that going forward, and if so, address them.
Yeah, when giving the instructions to the listening part of Quizlet, you know, you the one spoke pretty quick, but you modeled listening to the portion of the lesson. You modeled going back and listening to it and slowing it down and giving them, which about standard 6B again, that modeling responsible behavior. What do you hope the students will gain when you're able to model like that?
I think modeling is huge. I think it's great for whether you're sort of showing them how to use a resource, you know, like Quizlet, or you're showing how to peer edit something, or if you're, you know, showing how to give a presentation or how to listen to a presentation. I think anytime you model something, you sort of set the bar of expectations of what to do, how to behave, or how to address a certain skill, or just simply how to complete the function. I think sometimes kids, especially when it gets to technology, they might not know that, okay, I didn't really hear that really well. I want to slow that down so it's more my speed. So sometimes it's just maybe an informational message, or sometimes it might be, you know, setting an expectation for behavior, or for some kind of skill that you want them to do.
Then towards the end of your instructions, you stated you'd like everyone to get a B on the quiz portion. Like that standard 5, your goal setting, assessing their own learning. What are some other ways that you could assess this lesson?
I don't know. I think you could, another way I was thinking, you could, you know, instead of just going in and taking the test and getting whatever grade and be like, okay, I got this grade. Maybe set a goal before they take that test, you know, and it might not be something that they have to tell me, but they could say, okay, I want to try to attempt to get an A, and then if they don't get it, then they adjust their goals. The ways to assess the lesson, I think coming up with some kind of an exit ticket towards the end of class would be nice. Even if it was simple as if we were in the lab, coming up with some target questions on the board, and, you know, having some students answer those questions just randomly, or individually too. Maybe with a little exit ticket that they leave the classroom, they write down a subject and a verb, not write any name on it, no points, no, you know, there's no risk of getting a bad grade on it, and then hand it in, and then just for me to take a second and look at, you know, see how well they're grasping those concepts. That'd be another idea.
What are some next steps for meeting the foreign language learners standard 1.1 and STEM changing verbs are you going to take?
Yeah, I think we're going to bring in, you know, we've been doing a lot of writing lately. So I think the next step is just to really hit on those other modes of communication, whether it's listening, but more so speaking. Because I really like to connect the vocabulary for what the verbs mean to what their student interests are. You know, verbs like preferir, querer, or like to prefer, to want, to understand, entender, and put the students in a position they can use this language to express their interests, their likes, to really tie in, you know, so what we'll be doing in class to what they're about too as a student.
Then what goals will you set for yourself as we move forward in your future plans?
I don't know. I think just being aware of all the different learning styles, you know, and especially when we teach something brand new, like, you know, sort of a different concept like STEM changing verbs. Just being aware of which students are struggling, which students are feeling pretty strong about things, and maybe giving sort of varying your lessons to you know, maybe the students that are struggling, here's something we can be working on, whereas the students that are got a pretty good concept, give them something else to.
If you run by tonight, can you look like you're struggling?
Yeah, very quick, very good. I'll pick you up too.
I can't run with you.
But just sort of differentiating the lesson a little bit to hit on just the different styles of learning, just so we can eventually get to that point of hitting that learning target. So.
Alright, then, what kind of supports do you need, from me to continue to meet this goal?
I don't know. I think just providing, really good feedback, like you did, and bringing up questions that maybe some things that I might not see either. And keep on pushing that, keep on pushing the pedal. How could you do this differently? Because I think no matter what you're teaching, you always can go at things at a little different angle. And I think always being open to trying different things at different angles is going to make you a better teacher. And I think that's one of my main goals is, try to become the best that I can. So, just the continuous feedback and just be available for, if I need to have you look at something and, have that opportunity to come in.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much for that. And,
Yeah, no problem.
I did enjoy a lot of your checking for understandings
Okay,
throughout
sure.
the lesson. I
Yeah.
saw a lot of those. It was pretty neat to see some of those, especially from the Yale training that we had.
Mhm.
That was kind of cool to see
Mhm.
some of those in action.
Mhm.
So, all right,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Yep.